Hello friends and followers, welcome back to TJ's Modeling Bench. Time for another weekly update. I've been working on my Saturday night short track group build models. I'm doing two. I'm doing the 34 Ford Slammer and the 37 Chevy early modified. And I've got them both roughly to about the same state right now. And what I'm trying to do is add some details that aren't really part of the kits. You know, I want to start doing more of the, brake lines and fuel lines and that kind of thing. And both of these kits lack all of that, which I find a little odd considering how exposed a lot of the frame of these cars are. So I don't know if my knowledge of everything is as good as it should be to really do what I want to do. So hopefully I can pull it off and make it look right. I'll probably ask some guys quite a few questions. In fact, I know Mark Batson is working on the Ford as well. He just posted a video on his page and I watched it, and I'm roughly at about the same point in my build on mine as he is. So I saw a few little things that he did that I'm gonna put in the memory bank when I get to it. And also, I've done a little shopping this week. Some of it for these particular models specifically, and then also working toward my USAC build. There were some things I needed, not really tools-wise, but details-wise and scratch building materials. So hang on a second. I'll show you where we're at with the cars, and then I'll show you what we got in the mail. All right? So I'm currently working on the 37 Chevy early modified, and I'll tell you, this kit has a lot of flash on it. The molds are really old. I've had to clean up a lot of flash. There's a lot of pin marks where it got punched out of the molds. Now, this is the chassis, which you're not going to see a lot of, but part of the suspension is fairly visible. So this front section here with the radiator on it, these spring shocks are actually attached. Well, I cut them away, but I left the top attachment portion on there. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to make scratch build some spring shocks to replace those. And likewise, the rear end also has spring shocks. And what I'll do is I will cut off the eyelet ends of these, and then we'll scratch build the spring shock part of it. So now here we've got our front shocks that were cut off. And I've got these pieces of styrene tubing that is maybe slightly larger than the center core of those. And then we've got the rear shocks that were cut free from the eyes at the top and bottom. And again, I used a piece of this styrene tubing to replace the center portion of that coilover. And then I've got some 0.8 millimeter rosin core solder that will become our spring. And I've wrapped it around the same size tubing that I've used for the inner core there. And what we can do is we can just separate this slightly. And if you want specific spacing, you can actually use the solder to go in between those, and then that'll give you an even spring spacing. But once I've got that done, then I can easily just cut off the pieces that I need, slip them over our core sections, and then we can start gluing them back together. And there we have it. The rear coilover springs, the front coilover springs. Now, let's compare what was there originally versus what is there now. Personally, I don't think there's really any comparison. Now, I may have more coils on those front springs than I needed, and it may make it look more compressed than it needs to be, but I still think it looks better than the original kit parts. All right, so here is the chassis for the 34 Ford Slammer, and that's all the Mr. Surfacer 1500 black primer. Now, I still need to do detail painting, obviously, so what I'm not sure of, and one of the details that I want to work on is like brake lines, fuel lines, whatnot. I'm assuming that this piece right here is the master brake cylinder, but I'm not positive about that. I mean, it doesn't look like any brake master cylinder that I've ever seen. Doesn't mean that it's not. I just haven't seen one that looked quite like that. It's in the right place for it to be that. I don't know. So maybe you guys can chime in and let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. Of course, there's our battery. And it's, well, yeah, all right. It's hard to see, but we've got our Bigfoot gas pedal put in there. All right. And then our body is also in primer. Needs a little bit. I tried to fill in these ejection pin marks on the inside. I didn't do as good as I could have maybe, but I don't think they're going to be seen anyway. Something else the kit doesn't provide, which I've noticed in some of the reference photos I have, is that a lot of these cars used like a fencing cage for the windshield instead of a perspex or plastic. But maybe that's just the older cars. Maybe the newer ones now are using more of the plastic windshields. But I'm going to try to find probably some window screen. I think will work perfect for that. So there's that. And then let me get the Chevy. Hold on. All right, so I'm not quite as far along on the Chevy. I've been working one and then the other. So obviously I did more work on the Ford at this point. But I am still waiting on an engine for the Ford. I am not using, in either one of these, I am not using the kit supplied engines. They're just not good. They're so poor that, I mean, I would normally probably have used them if they weren't as bad as they are. So I have ordered, whoops, hit the camera, sorry. I have ordered engines for each. Matthew over at MCV Products provided me with the Chevy engine for this, but I am still waiting on a Ford 420, what is that, a 428, and Matthew didn't have that, so I found another eBay vendor, and off the top of my head, I don't recall that vendor's name, but it was not the Texas 3D guy, it was another one. So I'm still waiting on that to show up. It's in the mail. So we'll take a look at that when it gets here. But speaking of Matthew over at MCV Products, hold on a second and I'll show you what we got this week. All right, so first off, I got my Chevy engine, Chevy 327 with the Muncie 4-speed. And it's a good looking, of course, everything 3D printed nowadays is good looking. But Matthew prints these real well. It's all pretty well detailed. So we'll get that assembled and painted accordingly and then get that installed in our chassis so we can proceed with it. And like I said, I'm still waiting on the 428 for the Ford. I was lucky enough to get to spend some time with Matthew and his wife Heather at Acme a couple weeks back when we were there for that show. A group of us went out to dinner Saturday evening after the show had ended, so got to know them a little better. They are great people. And if you're not aware, he just updated the website. It is no longer mcvproducts.net. He has now gone to a .com. So it is mcvproducts.com. Let's get rid of that. So if you put in the mcvproducts.net, it should forward you automatically to the .com. But if it does not, put in mcvproducts.com in your URL line, and it should go right to it. So just a little heads up on that. All right, so what else did I get? All right, I told you I want to try to start adding some details that I haven't really done before. So we got from Gopher Racing through Matthew's website, MCV Products, we got some fuel line. This is 0.3 millimeter brake line. We also got, and I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to use this in one of these or not. I very well might, but this is our pedal setup. Gas, clutch, all that. I'm very, very tempted to try to use this on one of these two builds. Now, I've already got the pedals put into the Ford, so this may go into the Chevy. We'll see. And then, of course, you did see I got my Bigfoot gas pedal. You can see I pulled one off already. So those came from MCV Products. I got these vintage drum brakes, and I'm not so sure I'm going to be using these. I thought, I hadn't really dug into it too deep yet, but I thought that, one of these would use old drum brakes, but I don't know. After looking a little more on the internet at some images, maybe they don't use these. Maybe they're using modern disc brakes. So that's also still kind of up in the air. I suppose I could still use them on one of them, maybe. It wouldn't be a big sin. What else have we got? Oh, this. So there's 3 little things in there, and those little things are master switches for your race car. So your master power on-off switch inside the car, that's what those are for. So I will be using at least one of those, but maybe 2, one for each car. We'll see how much detail I can work into it. And then another awesome little detail that he provides. These are your battery terminal clamps. All right, so I've already used 2 of them. They're on the Ford battery right now. And what I did, I have some thin solder. This is 0.8 millimeter solder. And I drilled out where my battery post would be, and then used a bit of this as my post, and it fits perfectly inside that clamp. So you've got your true lead post. So that's a little goodie for you. So yeah, those work fantastic. Love those. I got a pack of shifters. Not sure which one of those I might use in the Chevy. The Ford I've already I put the model kit shifter in there, so I probably won't pull it back out. We'll just leave that one where it is. But yeah, some really cool shifters there. What else have we got? All right, I was talking about that master brake cylinder. These are master brake cylinders. And like I said, the one that's on the kit doesn't really look like any of these, and this is what I'm typically used to seeing. I mean, although, maybe this small one here could pass as what they're trying to pass off as a brake cylinder. I'm not real sure. But you've got this 4-pack. You've got 2 different styles in there. So that... and then this is a newer item that I found on his site. At least I believe it's newer. I don't remember seeing it before. So this is radiator hose tubing, right? It's wire with the insulation on it, but it's the right size for your radiator hoses. And then these fittings. So, you know, Detail Masters has the metal fittings, but then Matthew's got these 3D printed ones that you can use. And I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, if I'm getting too much glare, but they are hex shaped. So they're round for the tubing itself, but then they flare out to a hex shape. So all it needs is, you know, some good paint on there, and you're all set. And I have used the Detail Master stuff with the braided line and their fittings. The braided line, I had trouble getting that put on there properly. I talked to old Tom White at Acme, and he gave me some pointers on how to do that. But this will be even easier. This should be a perfect slip fit. What else? All right. I got 2 of these racing seats. So this is one from one kit. Let me see if I can pull out another. All right, I'm sorry. I said this was from one kit. This is not. This is one of the 3D printed ones that I got from Matthew. I got 2 of them. But this is one of them from the kits. It's actually 3 pieces, so you got the sides and then the back and seat portion are separate. So, yeah, it's all right. Obviously, there's some ejector pin marks right there and there on the visible side of the seat. Why they couldn't put it on the back side, I don't know. So size-wise, it's about right. I'm going to have to create some standoffs to get it higher off the floor. But seat belts, I'm not sure. I can create some scratch made with Tamiya tape. I do have some photo etch belt buckles, but they're not for racing harness style. So I may still have to make an order for a racing harness. Now the other kit, the Ford, I think, that seat that comes in the kit has the molded in seat belts. Well, I'm trying to finish both of these in a racing scene, so a diorama, and I want to get drivers put in there. So this is an unfinished driver from that little, I think I mentioned it in the last video. It's a figures and accessories kit, but it's in 1/24. So it's a little bit too big for what I need. So what I'm going to end up doing, I am going to sculpt my own drivers. This is Sculpey. It's a sculpting putty that you bake, and once it's baked, it's cured. I've never done any real sculpting. I've wanted to do some for quite a long time, so I figured I'd get just a small brick for now and do a little practice run, and then if I feel comfortable enough, then we'll sculpt another driver figure or 2, but slightly smaller. The reason I even put this one together is so that I would have something to use for proportions, so I can get my figures close to looking proper. So I got that as well. And then also from Matthew, I got a pack of steering wheels. All right, one of those has already worked its way loose from the build plate. So those will come in handy on some future builds, not so much in these race car builds. We're just going to use the stock kit wheels in those. And then I needed some more plug boots. So this is the 45 degree, I believe. And then I also got, this is the 90 degree. And in the past, I have also used and really like, he's got his window cranks. So there's 4 different styles of window crank handle. And I've used those in the past. I really, really like those, so I ordered some more. some slapper bars. This is going to get used, well, no it's not. I was going to say this is going to get used on my USAC build, but delete that. That's not going on the USAC build. That'll get used on something else. Probably a Mercury that I have coming up in the queue. What else? Oh, yeah. And this I thought was really cool too. These are exterior door handles. So vintage style door handles. Like these two here that are drilled out. Like that might look good on some kind of a rat rod maybe. The two right here are just, you know, simple turn handles. But yeah, I thought, you know, those are kind of cool. It wouldn't hurt to have those in the stash. You never know when they might come in handy. You know, maybe you shave off what's molded in on a body door and get something that looks a little more realistic added in its place. And lastly, what do you think those are? It's not a bed of nails. It's actually Schrader valve stems for your tires. So valve stems to add to your wheels so you can air up your tires. And those, some of those will get used on the short track builds. And now this didn't come from Matthew over at MCV. This was actually an order off of Amazon, but I found myself needing a little bit more of this than I could find at my local hobby shop. But K&S brass tubing. There's actually, now, in fact, this isn't tubing at all. This is brass rod. I don't know if that's getting on there or not, but there are multiple sizes in there. You can see there's one of each of these. So there's 11 different pieces, 11 different sizes of brass rod. So some of that will get used for door hinges on my USAC build. So I cut the doors out the other week. I was debating on the trunk lid, and I think I am going to do that. I am going to remove the trunk lid as well. So the brass rod is perfect for doing that. And I do believe that catches us up with what I've got to show this week. I've got a few more things to come in yet. Like I said, the one 3D printed motor has not arrived yet. I will show you guys that when it does. And I do have just a few more little doodads from other places that I'm waiting on. And I will show you those when I get them in. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's update. Hope you guys are enjoying what I'm putting out there. I know I'm not posting as often as some of the other guys do. Like I just don't have the kind of time that it takes to do a lot of modeling and a lot of video processing. So once a week is about all I'm able to do right now. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. If you are, give me a thumbs up, give me a like and a share. Feel free to comment, ask questions, tell me I'm a bonehead, whatever. I can take it. And today is actually Tuesday, November the 11th, Veterans Day. So I want to say thank you to all of our veterans from all of our branches of service, men and women. Without their call to duty and their sacrifices for the country, we wouldn't have the country we have. So thank you all for that. Happy Veterans Day. I am also a veteran. And yeah, welcome to my workbench. Until next time, everybody, peace and love.